Jaguar Land Rover is to cut thousands of jobs in the UK as part of a major cost-cutting drive, while Ford is to review all of its European operations to try to boost profits. Japan's Prime Minister, who's visiting London, has said the whole world wants to avoid a no-deal Brexit. The chairman of Debenhams has been forced out after the retailer reported a drop in sales over the crucial Christmas period. The family of a 14-year-old boy stabbed to death in a targeted killing have insisted he wasn't involved in gangs. President Trump has claimed that he never said that Mexico would have to pay for a border wall. Thousands of car workers are facing an uncertain future after two leading manufacturers, Jaguar Land Rover and Ford, announced plans to reduce costs. Jaguar Land Rover is cutting 4,500 jobs, most of them office ones in the United Kingdom. But the company also said it would create new roles as it invested in electric models. Ford has said it's reviewing its European operations. Thousands of jobs are at risk across the continent and in the UK, although cuts here are not thought to be imminent. This evening, another car maker, Honda, said it would stop production at its plant in Swindon for 6 days in April in case the supply of parts is disrupted after Britain leaves the EU. Our business correspondent, Theo Leggett, reports.
Jaguar Land Rover calls its restructuring programmes Charge and Accelerate, but the reality is that the company is losing momentum rapidly and needs to save billions of pounds. It's already cut 1,500 jobs since the beginning of 2018. Now a further 4,500 posts are to go, the vast majority from within the company's UK workforce of 40,000. Most of them will be office jobs, with production line staff spared the bulk of the pain for now. The biggest immediate problem Jaguar Land Rover has faced over the past year has been a dramatic collapse of sales in China, previously its most profitable market. It's also been badly exposed to a steep fall in sales of diesel cars in the UK. And all of this, according to Chief Executive Ralph Spate, has come at a time when the industry is undergoing a technological revolution.
It's a very big moment, and it's, by the way, also a moment with a lot of opportunities. Opportunity we have to grab. In the next 5 years, you're going to see more changes than we have seen over the last 50 years, probably, because we nearly change everything. We change the engines, we change the connectivity, and we go into more assisted systems for the driver and the owner.
Then there's Brexit. JLR has warned that leaving the EU without a deal would have huge implications for its future business, upsetting its supply chains, introducing tariffs on products crossing the Channel, and potentially adding more than £1 billion a year to its costs. The company is already in the process of building up its international manufacturing base. It has a major plant in China. Last year it opened a factory in Slovakia, while its new electric I-Pace is being built in Austria. The editorial director of Autocar, Jim Holder, says that process will continue.
For Jaguar Land Rover to survive into the long term, it needs to be an international player in the global car market. And that means widening its scope beyond just British manufacturing. It has taken steps to do that already. It opened a plant in Europe last year, and it has grown its Chinese operations. Now, it needs to build on that and to really see that project through.
JLR is owned by the Indian conglomerate Tata, but insists it remains a British company and committed to UK manufacturing. It's promised to invest new funds in producing systems for electric cars at its engine plant in Wolverhampton, while a new battery assembly centre will be built at Hams Hall near Birmingham. Darren Hall of the Unite Union welcomed the plan.
We have to look at it from a business perspective, and this is about the long future of the company, not the short term. This is looking for the long term, and the moves where we have to take a little bit of pain. I think we will gain massively for the future, and the UK especially.
Meanwhile, Ford's European division has also announced plans to carry out a major restructuring programme. Thousands of jobs are expected to go across Europe. Ford has 2 engine plants in the UK, at Dagenham in Essex and Bridgend in South Wales. The move is expected to renew concerns about the future of Bridgend in particular, although cuts are not expected imminently. And the Japanese manufacturer Honda has confirmed it will close its Swindon factory for 6 days in April, in case its part supplies are disrupted in the aftermath of Brexit. BMW has previously said it will close its mini plant near Oxford in April for the same reason.
Jaguar Land Rover's chief executive said the company was looking at many options for developing its brand. Our business editor Simon Jack considers the carmaker's future.
Jaguar Land Rover is on very rough terrain and is attempting a very difficult manoeuvre. Its historic strengths have become its weaknesses in the face of a changing world. Its success was built on diesel-powered, UK-made, premium brand vehicles that sold in volume around the world, especially in China. All that is changing, with JLR particularly exposed to the double whammy of slumping sales of diesel and the first downturn in China car sales in 2 decades. Today's announcement is a measure of the drastic action the company needs to take. Unions are concerned that while UK jobs are lost, jobs and production are expanding in Slovakia, Brazil, India and indeed China, the source of much of its current troubles. The road ahead looks very challenging as it's spending billions trying to ultimately transform itself into an electric-first brand positioned for the future. If that's where you want to go, you wouldn't want to start where Jaguar is now. Its electric I-Pace vehicle is well regarded, but motorists are not yet buying electric in sufficient numbers to restore Jaguar to its fairly recent glory.
The Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has told Theresa May that the whole world wants to avoid a no-deal Brexit. Speaking after talks in Downing Street, Mr Abe said his country offered total support for her withdrawal agreement, and he truly hoped that the UK would not leave the EU without a deal. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, James Landale.
Theresa May have scant support for her Brexit withdrawal deal at Westminster, but today at least she found one ally willing to speak up for her efforts. The Prime Minister gave Shinzo Abe a guard of honour, lunch at Twickenham and talks at Downing Street. And in return, as they stood shoulder to shoulder in number 10, the Japanese Prime Minister lavished his host with praise. Mr Abe said he had the deepest respect for Mrs May's hard work and strong will in trying to get her deal through Parliament. Japan, he said, was in total support of that agreement, which would ensure a transition and legal stability for the 1,000 Japanese businesses investing in the UK.
It is the strong will of Japan to further develop this strong partnership with the UK, to invest more into your country and to enjoy further economic growth with the UK. That is why we truly hope that a no-deal Brexit will be avoided. And in fact, that is the whole wish of the whole world.
That was exactly the message that Theresa May wanted to get across to MPs ahead of next week's vote on her deal, a sense of the scale of international concern about a no-deal Brexit. But there are risks. In the past, MPs have not always responded favourably to foreign leaders suggesting what they should do. And on this issue, they have a vote, and Shinzo Abe does not.
The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has indicated he would not immediately call for a vote of no confidence in the government if Theresa May's Brexit deal is rejected by MPs next week. Labour is set to vote against the agreement on Tuesday, but Mr Corbyn again insisted that a general election would be the best way to break the deadlock over the UK's withdrawal from the EU. Mrs May has spoken to 2 union leaders about Brexit for the first time as part of efforts to build support for her deal. Our assistant political editor Norman Smith reports.
With Theresa May's Brexit deal seemingly heading towards a resounding defeat, there is now intense debate in Labour ranks over how they respond. Many Labour MPs and party activists are desperate for Mr Corbyn to back a fresh referendum. A recent poll of party members suggested 72% supported the move. Mr Corbyn, however, has always shied away from such a commitment, and today he poured further cold water on the idea, cautioning that politicians could not wish away the views of 17 million voters. He also appeared to signal that he would not be pressing for an immediate no-confidence vote should the Prime Minister's deal be defeated on Tuesday. That, he suggested, may have to wait.
Labour will table a motion of no confidence in the government at the moment we judge it to have the best chance of success. Clearly, Labour does not have enough MPs at the moment in Parliament to win a confidence vote on its own.
At the same time, there are clear signs of attempts at bridge building by the government after Number 10 signalled they'd accept an amendment tabled by Labour MPs guaranteeing workers' rights. The Prime Minister also held what were described as constructive talks today with key union leaders, including Unite's Len McCluskey, and it was confirmed held further talks with some Labour MPs. One of them, John Mann, was asked if Mrs May's approach made it more likely Labour backbenchers could support the deal.
Of course it does, but it doesn't mean that people are going to be rushing on Tuesday to do so. And indeed, this is the start of the process. I could reasonably say perhaps this should have been done a long time ago, but we are where we are. The Labour MPs who, of course, won't be very happy are those who want to overturn the referendum, overturn the manifesto they stood on, and have a second referendum or revoke Article 50 and keep us in the EU.
The Labour front bench for now remains publicly hostile to any compromise with Mrs May, and while there's little chance of any significant movement by next Tuesday, the hope in government is that as the clock ticks down to no deal, more Labour MPs can be encouraged to back the Prime Minister, enough, perhaps, to give Mrs May a chance of eventual success.
£40 million is to be spent on chartering ships to patrol Britain's fishing waters after Brexit. The agency, which regulates the seas around the UK, the Marine Management Organisation, wants to increase surveillance and use vessels, which gives its officers the ability to board fishing boats. The proposed contract would start 3 days after the UK is due to leave the EU. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford reports.
The £10 million a year contract came to light as a result of the BBC looking through government tenders linked to Brexit. This tender closes tomorrow. The contract will start on April the 1st and last for 4 years. In the tender documents, the Marine Management Organisation, the MMO, says it needs to charter vessels capable of staying at sea for 21 days in order to patrol the seas around the UK, known as the Exclusive Economic Zone. Each vessel needs to carry 2 rigid-hulled inflatable boats for boarding fishing boats. The tender says the ships will do marine surveillance, patrol Britain's waters and provide a physical deterrent. At present, Britain's fisheries are patrolled by 3 ships from the Royal Navy's Fishery Protection Squadron and by unarmed fishery protection vessels working for the Welsh and Scottish governments. But Phil Haslam, the operations director of the MMO, said last year that he wanted to move to a mixed economy rather than relying only on the Royal Navy. Aerial surveillance of British waters is also being reintroduced.
The chairman of Debenhams, Ian Cheshire, has stepped down after the struggling department store reported a sharp drop in sales over the Christmas period. 2 major shareholders voted against his re-election to the board at the company's annual general meeting. Debenhams chief executive Sergio Boucher has also been removed from the board but will continue in his role. More details from our business correspondent, John T. Bloom.
Debenhams saw sales fall over the Christmas period, a sure sign of its continuing serious problems. It's losing money hand over fist and is planning to close up to 50 of its worst performing stores. But now it's obvious that the company's largest shareholders have lost confidence in its most senior management. Debenhams' largest shareholder is Mike Ashley, the owner of Sports Direct and of the House of Fraser. Last month, he offered to lend Debenhams £40 million, an offer that was quickly and firmly rejected by the company, which was worried that it would give Mr. Ashley too much influence over Debenhams' future. He said he wants to merge it with House of Fraser. Now Mr. Ashley appears to have got his revenge and flexed his muscles by forcing out the 2 top executives on the board who opposed him last month.
John Lewis has said it might not pay bonuses to its staff for the first time since 1953, despite higher sales over Christmas. The warning came as a number of retailers reported disappointing trading figures, including Marks & Spencer and Halfords. The British Retail Consortium said it had been the worst December since the financial crisis in 2008. Our economics correspondent Darshini David reports.
Retailers typically make 40% of their money over the crucial festive trading period. But for many, this Christmas failed to deliver. A decade of stagnant real wages and uncertainty over what lies ahead made shoppers more cautious. Marks & Spencer, which is in the midst of a turnaround plan, saw sales fall 2.2%, with clothing and footwear hardest hit. John Lewis may have managed to increase sales, but it too felt the impact of the downturn. Its chairman, Charlie Mayfield, warned that the annual bonus paid to its 84,000 staff may be at risk for the first time in 66 years.
We can afford to pay one because we've taken steps over the last 3 years to build up our cash position, and actually we're in a relatively good position on that. But what we have to also think about, is it prudent? And of course, in some ways, this year is no different to any other year, except there's obviously quite a big difference in the sense there's a lot of uncertainty. We'll see in March. We won't make the decision till then.
Analysts point out that spending was not as disastrous as some had feared, and there were some bright spots. Tesco reported an increase of 1.2% in the latest quarter and posted its best Christmas performance in almost a decade. But overall, the trend in high street spending is subdued. As they grapple with changing shopping habits and mounting costs, retailers are starting 2019 feeling less than prosperous.
You're listening to the 6 o'clock news on BBC Radio 4, the main news so far. Jaguar Land Rover is to shed 4,500 jobs, most of them in the UK, while Ford is to start a major cost-cutting review across Europe. The chairman of Debenhams has been forced out after poor Christmas sales, and the chief executive has been voted off the board. Still to come, a match-fixing scandal in tennis and 4 new roles for the Duchess of Sussex. The family of a boy who was knocked off his moped and stabbed to death in East London have said he had absolutely no affiliation with gangs. Police believe Jaden Moodie was killed in a targeted attack. His family said if there were people capable of killing a 14-year-old child, then no one was safe. Ashley John Baptiste reports.
Jaden Moodie's cousin, Leon Green, said the teenager killed on Tuesday night had been a loving, caring and bright young lad who had his whole life ahead of him. Mr. Green, who was standing alongside Jaden's mother, Jada Bailey, said the 14-year-old had had a keen interest in bikes and sports and had been due to start at a boxing academy later this month. Mr. Green also rejected some suggestions in the media that Jaden had been involved with gangs.
I would like to stress that Jaden had recently moved from Nottingham to London and had absolutely no affiliation with gangs. Focus needs to be on the fact that he has been brutally murdered in cold blood and deserves a fair chance at justice.
Yesterday, police found the Mercedes B-Class car thought to have been used in the attack, which happened when Jaden was knocked off a moped and then stabbed. Currently, no arrests have been made. The Metropolitan Police said additional officers were in the area and that there had been an increase in the number of armed response vehicles sent to Leighton.
Donald Trump has falsely claimed that he never said Mexico would meet the costs of a border wall with the United States. The president made the comment as he left the White House ahead of a visit to the Texan border town of McAllen. Mr. Trump will use the trip to boost support for a wall as a partial government shutdown over the issue enters its 20th day. Our North America correspondent, Nick Bryant, has this report.
I'm standing at what's become the angriest fault line in US politics. A border that not only separates Mexico from America, but which also divides the United States. For Donald Trump, his wall has always been a political device as well as a physical barrier. And this is the fight that could define his presidency. And it's also a battle about the idea of America. What sort of country should this be? Which is why both sides have so far refused to back down. Leaving Washington for Texas wearing a white Make America Great Again cap, Donald Trump took aim at the Democrats. Last night he walked out of a meeting in the White House Situation Room with the party's congressional leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, tweeting bye-bye immediately afterwards, and evidently saying it in person as well. He also delivered this untruthful statement about Mexican funding for the wall, another election pledge.
During the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this and I never meant they're going to write out a check.
But in the campaign, he did promise that Mexico would make a one-time payment. In the Town Hill visit, there's already a steel fence. Along the 2,000-mile border, there's 700 miles of wall and fencing. And the local police chief, Victor Rodriguez, told us that a wall along the entire length was unnecessary.
You know, there are thousands of miles of border. You don't have this activity levels on every inch of soil along those miles of border. It's only in different spots. And we should be responsive to those as opposed to this idea when you ask about, you know, should there be a wall from here to here? Well, that's just not logical.
Donald Trump has again suggested he may declare a national emergency, which would allow him to bypass Congress to fund the wall. But that would also provoke a constitutional showdown that would likely be settled in the courts.
The Catholic Church in the Democratic Republic of Congo has cast doubt on the official results from the presidential election, saying figures published by the Electoral Commission do not match data collected by its observers at polling stations. Félix Tshisekedi's contested victory has raised fears of a political crisis in Congo, which is hoping to complete its first democratic transition of power in 59 years of independence. Our Africa editor Fergal Keane sent this report from the DRC.
At the winning candidate's headquarters in Kinshasa, they'd been celebrating throughout the night.
We are very happy about the result. It's something we have been fighting for so long, 36 years. But we have been there without shedding a blood. So we went peacefully and we have the power.
Here at Tshisekedi headquarters, there is a mood of celebration. We're being showered with talcum powder, with water, all the public demonstrations of people's ecstasy here at this result. But it's important to remember that mood is by no means shared in this city or in this country. Already the other opposition candidate, Martin Fayulu, has denounced the victory as a fraud that the people would never accept. And the powerful Catholic Church today questioned the result. Abbé Donatien Nshole is a church spokesman.
From the analysis of the observers, we note that the results of the presidential election, as published by the Electoral Commission, do not correspond to the data collected in the polling stations and the count.
The new president doesn't enjoy a reputation for political effectiveness. Perhaps the most telling fact of the day is that neither Mr. Kabila or his party have so far voiced any objection to the result, even if they must now accept that their own candidate was defeated. For Mr. Fayulu, the most likely option is to try and challenge the result through the Constitutional Court in the coming days. The danger for Congo and for a watching African continent is that this country has had an election with the outward appearance of democracy, but not its true substance.
Unusually large snowfall in much of Central and Eastern Europe has left at least 14 people dead. In parts of the Austrian Alps, the risk of avalanches has reached its highest level. Bethany Bell sent this report from Scheibs in central Austria.
Winter has Central and Eastern Europe in its grip. There's been unusually heavy snowfall in parts of the Alps, and the extreme weather has even reached southeastern Italy, where schools have been closed, and Turkey, where roads have been blocked and ferry services cancelled. In Greece, temperatures have dropped to -23 Celsius. But it's the Alps which have seen some of the greatest disruption and loss of life. Yesterday, a 16-year-old boy died in an avalanche as he was skiing in St. Anton in western Austria. A number of Austrian ski resorts and mountain villages have had to be evacuated. And it's a constant struggle to keep paths and roads clear. Barbara Vucic and Martin Bachinger work at a hotel in Plankenstein in the Alpine foothills west of Vienna.
The snow at home is from 1,50 meters to 2,50 meters, and I have to shovel every day 1 hour. Sometimes it's 40, 50 centimeters new snow, and this is difficult.
We're on top of a hill, so we have to carry away the snow 5 or 4 times a day that all our guests can visit us safely.
Across the region, heavy snowfalls are forecast over the next few days. That would normally please ski resorts, which often have to rely on artificial snow. But now, in many areas, there's too much natural snow to ski safely.
The American pop star Lady Gaga has apologised for working with the embattled singer R. Kelly. The 52-year-old R&B star stands accused of sexually abusing multiple women and underage girls over several decades. He denies all the allegations. Charlotte Gallagher has this report.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
R. Kelly has sold 75 million records, won 3 Grammys and worked with some of the biggest names in music, such as Jay-Z and Michael Jackson. But there has long been concern about his behaviour towards young girls, including his alleged marriage to the singer Aaliyah when she was only 15. A new documentary, Surviving R. Kelly, features interviews with women who say they were assaulted by the star. It also claims that teenage girls and women were kept trapped in the singer's home in a so-called sex cult. Prosecutors in the US cities of Atlanta and Chicago are now urging potential victims to come forward. R. Kelly has denied the claims and reportedly threatened to sue anyone involved in the documentary. Lady Gaga, who was sexually assaulted when she was a teenager, had been under pressure to speak out because the pair duetted on this song in 2013.
with your body. Do what I want, do what I want with your body.
She's now issued a statement saying that she stands behind these women 1,000% and that the allegations are horrifying and indefensible. She added she was in a dark time in her life when she worked with R. Kelly and promised the song would now be removed from all music streaming services. Lady Gaga isn't the first star to criticise R. Kelly. The singer John Legend has been vocal in his condemnation, saying he believes the alleged victims.
The rail regulator has revealed for the first time which train operators are the slowest to deal with claims for compensation. Figures published by the Office of Rail and Road show a total of 3 million claims were made between April and mid-October last year, with 92% processed within the target of 1 month. The regulator says Hull Trains was the worst performing operator, dealing with fewer than a third of applications on time. In the city, the 100 share index ended the day 36 points higher at 6,942. On Wall Street, a short time ago, the Dow Jones was up 40 points at 23,919. On the currency markets, the pound is up 0.2 cents against the dollar at $1.27.7. And against the euro, sterling is up 0.4 cents at €1.11, and that makes a euro worth 90 pence. Police in Spain have arrested 15 people as part of an investigation into tennis match fixing by an Armenian criminal gang. The authorities said 83 people were under investigation, including 28 professional players. In 2016, a joint BBC and BuzzFeed news investigation uncovered suspected illegal betting on tennis matches. Here's our sports correspondent, David Ornstein.
This investigation began last year amid concerns about irregular activities around matches at lower-level futures and challenger tournaments. Spanish police said a criminal group of Armenian individuals bribed professional tennis players to guarantee predetermined results and used the identities of thousands of citizens to bet on the fixed matches, with members of the Armenian group then attending those matches to ensure the players complied. Of the 28 players implicated, one is said to have competed at last year's US Open, but none of the suspects has been named. The EU police agency Europol revealed that 11 houses were searched in Spain and €167,000 in cash was seized, along with a shotgun, more than 50 electronic devices, credit cards, 5 luxury vehicles and documentation relating to the case. 42 bank accounts have been frozen. The authorities explained the scam had been operating since at least February 2017, with upwards of 97 futures and challenger matches fixed and profits possibly running into millions of euros.
The Duchess of Sussex has been named as the patron of the National Theatre, as well as 3 other charities that champion education, women's employment and animal welfare. The appointments are seen as an important milestone for the former actress as she continues her first steps in public life. Is our royal correspondent, Sarah Campbell.
Millions watched Meghan get married and begin her life as a duchess. But away from the cameras, she was also quietly visiting various charities and groups, working out what she wanted to put her name to. As a former actress, it's no surprise that the arts are reflected in this first tranche of patronages. She takes over from the Queen as the royal patron of the National Theatre, which says its mission is to make world-class theatre for everyone. She's spoken of her belief that higher education should be accessible to all and is now patron of the Association of Commonwealth Universities, which is committed to doing just that. There are also 2 small charities which she's put her name behind. The Duchess has made several visits to Smart Works. Theirs is a simple concept: help vulnerable women back into work by honing their skills and giving them smart outfits to wear to job interviews. Kate Stevens is the charity's CEO.
Somebody who's spent her life campaigning for women's rights. She's a natural champion for what we're doing. We're delighted to have her involved. What we're all about at SmartWorks is women helping other women be the best they can be, and that's something that I think she connects with and certainly that we feel is really exciting.
And finally, Meghan, a renowned dog lover, has lent her name to the Mayhew Animal Shelter in northwest London. With her baby due in spring, Meghan already had a busy year ahead. But carving her own niche as a working royal is also high on her list of priorities.
The headlines again. Thousands of jobs are to be cut from the UK car industry. Jaguar Land Rover has announced 4,500 redundancies, while Ford says it plans a major shake-up of its operations across Europe. Japan's Prime Minister has told Theresa May that the whole world hopes to avoid a no-deal Brexit. The chairman of Debenhams has failed to be re-elected to the board after the retailer reported a sharp drop in sales over Christmas. The family of a 14-year-old boy who was stabbed to death in East London have said he had absolutely no affiliation with gangs. BBC News.